140 odd, lots and lots of them. Yes, and you know what? There might be no rugby, but hey, that doesn't stop us talking about rugby, because hey, there's always stuff to talk about rugby. Even if we do go back and talk about, should we revert to the original laws of the game, or should we stick with the ones as they are now? Obviously, only having 15 players is way too few. It should be unlimited. Clearly, we might get into those kind of retro episodes in the next few months. But hi, joining us this evening is Herman. How are you doing, sir?
Yeah, these days that's kind of an open question, isn't it?
Well, you're.
I don't know. I guess good, but we'll see.
So what's the situation over in Sweden? Are you self-isolating? Have you been locked down? Are all the restaurants and things closed?
I'm not going to bore all the viewers for too much detail, but Sweden actually chose a little bit of different path with the coronavirus. We haven't put any hard lockdown yet, and we haven't stopped schools from going there. So there are a lot of discussions in Sweden right now if we're doing the right way or not. The UK did the same thing, but apparently this morning UK decided to change their strategy because it's going to be too many deaths. But let's leave that out of it. Let's talk rugby. I'm thinking about Corona the other 23 hours of the night. So really, I'm looking for some free space here.
I was looking forward to whole big conversations to the effects of pickled fish on the immune system, because I love a good smorgasbord, and those pickled fish, pickled herring, fantastic stuff. More pickled herring, that's what I say. Herman Clear's like, no, Paul, please do not go down that route. We are trying to talk about rugby. So yeah, basically there is no more rugby as for the foreseeable future. Even today, my final refuge was going to be club rugby in New Zealand, and that has now been put off until the 12th of April. And I was looking forward to the season kicking off this weekend. Tasman did kick off last weekend, so that's kind of what was my last refuge. And yeah, I've no idea what I'm going to do this weekend now. So, any kind of ideas as to what people should do on their weekends with no rugby? Which retro rugby eras should we be going back to look at?
I already started this actually because and I took the easy. I was actually first revisiting this last World Cup again. I did a big in-depth. Yeah, John, you like this because I watched all the celebration videos from South Africa one more time, and
John's here. Welcome, John.
Sorry. Yeah, and sorry, and it's also that actually is a subject we can talk about maybe today or some other day in depth, because it's really fascinating to follow South African rugby and see how the black population is really embracing the sport now. It's Springbok green is black now too. It's amazing to see. It has really happened. Who would have thought? Who would have? And I have some friends in South Africa who give me the same. They say they go to the mall and they see black kids even on weekdays wearing the Bokke jersey now too. It's it's amazing.
We don't even see All Blacks jerseys around malls in New Zealand. Good evening, John. Good to have you here. How are you doing, sir?
Well, thank you. I'm just concerned what's happening in Sweden, because it seems like the rest of Sweden is fading away, and all that we see is
I have an answer for you on that, John. Have you seen Apocalypse Now?
Yeah.
I'm Colonel Kurtz, I'm hiding here in the shadow.
Are you sure you're not coming out from the water?
No, that's the one who kills Colonel Kurtz.
Colonel
Kurtz sitting in the shade.
Yes, like
reading poetry loud.
Either there's an app there's an app there that he has that we should all be playing with this weekend.
Okay.
Paul, when you ask you what to do, that Herman has, or coronavirus has made everything fuzzy in Sweden.
You don't have
barring Herman.
Now this won't work for people who are on the who are actually watching the show, but for Herman and John, I've now blurred my background, so John now feels like the odd one out as the only one without a blurred background on the group chat.
How do you do that?
Should
I call a teenager?
It's a function in Skype. Well, try a 5-year-old. Yes, they'll understand how it works, John.
Call a teenager. Like, come and do the IT for me.
Actually, it's very good, Paul.
So, for those eagle-eyed of you, you might notice I'm in Ashwin's office today. So yes, I am. I'm up in Auckland, away in a temporary studio. I have relocated here for now. So boys, Super Rugby last weekend. Obviously, the Jaguares and the Highlanders was called off in the end. And the very last game of rugby was the Brumbies versus the Waratahs. Did you guys enjoy the round of Super Rugby? Will that? Did you manage to put on some rugby fat to get you through the lean period now?
Rugby fat, I like that.
I watched the only game I haven't watched in full was the Sharks versus Stormers. I watched all the others in full to make sure I had my full quote, or as much quota of rugby as I could.
I didn't watch Crusaders Sunwolves, but I watched all the other ones, and it was actually kind of a sad feeling because I realized then, because we're probably a little bit ahead of a curve here in Europe and down in Oceania, so I realized, oh no, this is going to be the last Super Rugby game for the season. That's just the way it's going to play out. So I had that feeling with me, and it was quite hard to enjoy the rugby actually, because that feeling was, it's going to be painful, and it is painful.
John, did you catch much rugby, or have you?
I did manage to catch some, not a lot. I gleefully imbibed the Sharks, who are quite an embodiment of what Herman was talking about, the embracing of rugby by the black community, in that Sharks backline, which is really the thing that separates them from most of the teams in the competition, is overwhelmingly stocked with non-white players, and of those players, most of them are black Africans, which is just terrific to see the strike power that they have. So that was great to see, and of course the Sharks are sitting top of the log, 7 out of 8 wins, and their single loss to the Hurricanes was the Saturday that Kerwin Bosch went back to South Africa for a family bereavement. That's their only loss when their playmaker went back, their on-field general there, backline, and so they're sitting top of the competition looking great stead, and the competition's cancelled.
It is.
So I know it's postponed, but the likelihood of it being completed, I think, is quite low. So it's a bit of a bummer, because the Sharks haven't been in this sort of form probably since 2007, when they hosted the final and lost the final.
Was it Brian Abana?
4 minutes. Oh gosh! I was watching that game. I had an opportunity to go to the game, but I had something else on early in the afternoon. And I was watching that game, and I saw that gap that he went through, and I jumped up from the TV and I ran to and I was pointing and said, "Fill that gap! Close that gap!" And there he went, right?
If John had been there, they'd have heard him shouting from the stands, and they'd have filled
the ruck. No. What's that?
So if John had been at the ground, they'd have heard you from the stands, and they'd have filled the gap,
they would have heard,
and they'd have won.
Yeah. Surprised they didn't hear me from 35 kilometers away, because the ball was still in the ruck, and I was pointing and close that gap. But yeah, the Sharks probably haven't been this strong relative to the rest of the competition since 2007, and there she blows, as I would say.
Yeah, and it's extra sad too, because the Sharks too, they've been like in the middle mud of Super Rugby for some time, and also they're winning, but they're playing so exciting rugby too. I mean, they must watch TV, and from my understanding, Paul, the Sharks have got huge props in New Zealand too for the way they're playing rugby.
Oh yeah, they have. Now, one of the things I have done, by the way, folks, is that I did a video yesterday, or the day before yesterday, I can't remember now. Anyway, I've done a video where I've looked at how difficult the schedule has been for each of the teams running into so far this season. And by my calculation, the Sharks have had the 12th most difficult season. So they've had a very easy season of it. Out of 12 out of 15, they've not had a particularly difficult season. But as you say, you can only play the teams in front of you, and they have produced the results. So if you want to go,
when you say the 12th most difficult, are you talking about playing the strength of their schedule? You're talking about how strong their teams are that they've played relative on the low.
According to how strong I think the teams are this year, yes.
Okay. What's called the PI, the Paul Index.
Paul Index. If we use the finishing places of where they all finished at the end of last season, then they have the seventh strongest, seventh strongest one. But I wouldn't call the Bulls and the well, I actually haven't played the Lions. I wouldn't say the Bulls were as good as they were last year, for example. So who finished fairly hard to stand out. So if you want to go and check that out, go check out DrivingMaul.com. I've gone through every team and looked at what the average strength of their schedule over the full season, and then also the strength over the season to date as well. So over the full season, the Sharks' entire season would have been the 13th most difficult. So they got one of the easiest schedules of all.
And in that,
but you're not factoring in travel, right?
True, I'm not factoring in travel. That's correct.
I mean, there's a huge difference between going across the ocean and playing 4 games in Australia and New Zealand versus the incredible wear and tear on the Blues that they came to South Africa for 2.
But true. But there's all sorts of other variables you can throw in there. But I've just looking at who they've played against. Yeah, and if you want to have, I say, check it out. Go to DrivingMaul.com, and you'll see the details of all of it there. Stephen Harris points out that this is the COVID-19 is just a conspiracy to derail the 2020 Blues season.
Yeah.
I was thinking of you, Stephen.
Spare a thought for all the Liverpool Football Club fans too. They gotta be like, what is wrong?
So that's there. So guys, as you say, Sharks top, Brumbies second, Crusaders third, Blues fourth, Chiefs fifth, Hurricanes sixth, Stormers seventh, and the Jaguares eighth. Those are the 8 teams in the finals positions as we go into this as it stands now. Now, there's also been the different number of games different teams have played as well. To be honest, but I'm from my mind that top 8 is probably the best 8. I think that's a fair reflection on who have been the best 8 teams in the competition this season.
I'm not completely in agreement. I think Reds, for starters, had something brewing. They are looking good, and their losses have been very unlucky. And I think if the season would have continued, I would have thought that the Reds would have moved up quite a bit in the ladder.
But year to date, they've won 2 games, right?
Yeah, but I know that, Paul.
So
if you watch how they played and the form of the team, they're looking very good.
How many teams have a general? That's their problem.
How many teams? It's unbelievable. But Reds lost. They lost with 4 points against the Crusaders in Christchurch, and they were unlucky to lose that one. Reds. The kicker left 11 points on the field or something like that.
If you're not going to train your kicker to kick, it's your own fault.
Yeah, but still, that's kind of an easy fix, I'm still persisting that things looking rather good for the Reds.
Okay, so you suggest. Go on, John.
Sorry, carry on, Paul.
No.
I was going to say the problem that the Reds have when I watch them is there's this twofold sense. One is they don't know how to win. They seem to be lacking in something there, whether it's a confidence to take the game by the scruff of the neck and win. And they seem to be lacking in a general to control play. So I know they've moved James O'Connor to 10 and he sparks the back line. But the ability to put the back line away is not always congruent with the ability to control the game and make sure it's played in the right areas and make sure that you dictate terms to the opposition. Right? So I think that's where they're lacking. They're lacking in an on-field general, and they're lacking in the ability to just manufacture a win, which is, of course, the great strength of the Crusaders, where they can win ugly. So even when they're not playing well, they have the ability to win. So yeah, so that's where I think the Reds, the Reds almost need to get on a roll, right, in the competition and develop a winning habit. And then I think there's a lot to be admired about how Brad Thorne has led them and developed them as players, right? And there seems to be an attitude of no excuses there, which is great, because I think they had way too many excuses for way too long there at the Reds for underperforming. But yeah, it's almost like they need to just cross that hump. But I think the key might be a real 10. Not that James O'Connor's not talented, but I don't know if he's quite got that general nous that they need.
It is a very young team, Reds too, so we're still learning. But I'm still. Usually, what happens as soon as you're absolutely right, John. But as soon as a young team goes over that bump and we start really, this is how you win. Then a young team like that can really start flying, because the confidence is going to go through the roof. Right. But we're not there yet. But we're knocking on the door, I would say. We're knocking on the door.
You see the difference between, say, James O'Connor, even though he's older, and Kerwin Bosch, is they both got a lot of speed. They both got great handling. They both put the back line away. But Kerwin Bosch has got an unbelievable boot.
Yeah, he does.
His tactical kicking as well, from hand, the length that he gets on his kicks, his placement, his ability, even his dropouts are amazing. The height that he gets to put his forwards underneath dropouts that he takes. All these kind of tactical kicking things, which the Sharks are taking their tactical kicking to the next level. And that is complemented the fact that they have that strike power. And that's just the thing. I think James O'Connor strikes me as somebody that possibly his best utilization would be coming into that channel on second, third, fourth phase, rather than dictating from first phase, where you need to put the sort of fear of positional kicking in the opposition, because he doesn't strike that kind of fear that he can pinpoint laser those kicks for position across the field.
It's interesting that so Sansar came out with, so they produce a team of the round each round, which is based on stats, and they've done a team of the tournament so far. And James O'Connor is
littered with Reds players, isn't it?
With James O'Connor in that 10 jersey.
That's wrong, but I saw that team this morning and I realized no, James O'Connor is not there. But I guess that comes from they have scored the most tries in the tournament so far, and he probably has the most try assists or something like that. Is that why he's so high?
It could be. I don't know. I've not checked. And I don't know why. What the situation is.
But I I mean, this is like just contemplating, pondering question in my head when I was watching this week, and I'm watching the Reds, and before imagine that Reds team, and if they get Aaron Cruden and Damian McKenzie at 10 and 15, they would be the best team in the comp, probably. That's how close.
James O'Connor, I think, would be a really good 12 for them. But they needed 10. Yeah.
But imagine Aaron Cruden in that 10 in the Reds with that kind of young team and that work mentality. I mean, the work morale they have in the team. Oh my God. But that's just me. That's not going to happen, obviously.
No, you're right, because look at the difference Aaron Cruden has made in that Chiefs team this year.
Yeah, he's been very impressive.
It's made a world of difference having a true 10.
Yep.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
So
a couple of so John, you didn't answer the question though. Do you think the current top 8 is a good indication as to who the top 8 teams are in the competition this year?
I don't think the Brumbies are number 2.
Oh no, but I don't. I'll talk about the order in a second, but the actual 8 teams themselves.
Run through them again, please.
So Sharks, Brumbies.
Because you said Brumbies at 2, and I just went. My internal system went.
Well,
so go through them again.
Brumbies could easily be number 1. The only loss was like the most stupid loss when we lost against the Blues at home. They were totally the better team in that game.
They've also had the easiest schedule of the season out of anybody. So Sharks, Brumbies, Crusaders, Blues, Chiefs, Hurricanes, Stormers, and Jaguares.
Sharks, Brumbies, Crusaders, Blues,
Yep.
Chiefs,
Hurricanes,
after
Stormers, and
Yeah.
Jaguars.
Yeah, that's right. I think the Brumbies shouldn't be too. I mean, their results might be that high, but as you say, their schedule is way easier. The teams that they're up against in Australia are poor compared to the rest of the competition, and their travel schedule is way lighter. So yeah, I think that's pretty much right. I think that they are better than the rest. Better than the Yep, they're better than the teams in South Africa that are trying to rebuild. That's the Lions and the Bulls.
Yep.
Yeah, that sounds about right to me.
So okay, so the only ones we've got a bit of discussion about is whether the Reds would potentially get in there, but that is assuming that they carry on their development curve, because they haven't really shown, because they haven't been able to get those, they haven't been able to get the results, even if they have put in some good performances so far this season.
Mm-hmm.
So if we were to go straight to finals with those 8, do you think that's one way we could finish the season off, by going straight to finals with those 8? Sure, there's a bit of maybe the order's not quite right, but hey, at least we've got the right 8 teams, and they can dink it out.
Yeah. If there is 3 weeks free, so that they can just do like a quick playoff to do. But that's very tricky to do in Super Rugby with the traveling is going to be involved. You know, it would for a natural competition. For a natural competition, that would be rather easy. But to do it for Super Rugby, I mean, god damn.
Well, we have until June.
You know, sorry, carry on, Paul.
We don't have to start the finals series until June. So we've got the rest of March, all of April, and all of May to sort out this thing. We've got 2.5 months away. Potentially, that is one of the ways the season could come to a close.
But there's a couple of issues here.
Okay.
Right. One is I think that it might take longer than 3 months.
Yep.
Right. I think it might take a lot longer. And Herman, who's right there in Europe and sees what the effect has been on Italy and Spain and France, and the CDC in the United States have now recommended no gatherings more than 10 people. Friend of mine is a pastor in Boston. The Massachusetts governor has declared no gatherings above, I think it's 25. So they've gone to virtual church services. So I think we might be in for quite a few months of this. And especially in the Southern Hemisphere, you know, we're going into winter. Right, so
and these virus like the cold.
So this is the issue, is that it might actually take off running in certain areas, and so this cross-pollination, and the irony is that virus looks like a pollen, that this cross-pollination might be a problem. So that's one. Number two is the thing that people don't realize about the Super Rugby, because we've been in it for 23 seasons now, 24 seasons.
25. It's a 25-year anniversary, John. Have you missed that?
25 seasons. That's right, 96. So this would be the 25th season. The thing that people don't realize is that if you go across the whole of the whole of the competition, there are 3 teams ever that have crossed an ocean and won a playoff game.
Yep.
There are 2 teams, and those 3 teams are the Chiefs, the Crusaders, and the Sharks. There are 2 teams ever that have done it more than once, right? And that's the Sharks and the Crusaders, right? So you think about that in 26 seasons, 3 teams across all of these teams have ever crossed an ocean and won. And simply, it's not only the travel, it's the fact that you play, and the following week, if you are traveling, the following week you play, right? So I remember, if it wasn't last year, it was the year before, my son came through to me one day. I was busy sitting in the lounge. My son came through and said, Dad, I just read something here that the quarterfinal is this Saturday. So he's sitting in New Zealand, and this South African team, he says, played last week in South Africa, and they have to play on Saturday. So imagine this is a 15, 16-year-old who sort of rugby's just happened around him. Now he's getting into it. Now he's looking at it. He's travelled, having grown up in South Africa, visited New Zealand, and then emigrated. He's done that trip. He knows the effects of jet lag going from west to east, which is the worst one.
Harder. Yeah.
It's harder, always west to east. And so he knows how long it affects you. Normally it takes about 10 days before you feel normal, right? At least a week before you feel vaguely normal. And so he comes through to me, he says, Dad, I just said they played in South Africa on Saturday night, which is Sunday in New Zealand time, and they have to play here in New Zealand on Saturday. That must be a mistake. That it can't be right. I said, no, Mum. No, really, he came through like there must be a typo in what I read on the internet. The reporter has got it wrong. Because in his mind, not having grown up in it and having experienced the consequences, it just was ludicrous to him that you could expect a team to do that, right? And so I said to him, no, my boy, that's it. And his response was, oh, come on, Dad. That can't be. I said, really? That's what it is? He said, but that's rubbish. How can that possibly? And we have been in it for all these years. We haven't, and it works both ways, of course, because other teams, it might not be so bad east to west, but it still has an effect, right? So if you take that order that you're talking about, Paul, right, I don't know if that's really fair, because certainly the Brumbies shouldn't be 2. But if it's all that we're going to get, I suppose this is the better than nothing scenario.
The other way we could do it is to average the points per game, because the Stormers have played one more game and only have one more point than everyone else, and that way we can get them down to third and put the Brumbies at number 1.
Well, another option too is to actually make a 4-round playoff to let the winner team get a bye from the 4th round, and then let's just put number 1 against 15 actually number 2 against 15, number 3 against 14. You could do it like that too. So that way everyone will get a shot at the playoffs. So no complaints from anyone afterwards.
So anyway, these are just some of my thoughts. I think that the overall list is correct, but I do think that
the Brumbies are too high.
Did I convey that?
Message is clear, John.
What has amazed me is how the Stormers have fallen off. Right?
Well, they lost. I mean, I put some money on them, but they lost pretty much the 3 best players, didn't they?
Please don't bet on the Sharks. Okay.
No, I stay away from them now.
Don't bet on the Sharks, please. That's my team.
That's going to work out fine for me now. I'm going to get a refund, most likely, so I'm not too sad about it. Look.
You're right. I do think the loss of Peter Steph du Toit has made a huge difference to that team. But they don't have a backline. That's their problem, the Stormers.
Khaleesi, and who's the third one?
Sorry.
Also, yes, Spears.
Sorry. What's that?
Also losing out on Bongi and Sia is huge. I mean, it's
the three players that are missing.
Springbok starters.
Sorry, say again, mate.
Herman, run us through the 3 players that are missing.
Peter Steph du Toit, obviously, Sia Khaleesi, and Bongi. That's 3 starting Springboks. I mean,
in the Springbok pack, it's huge.
You could probably argue that Springbok has the best back row in the world, and they got 2 or 3 of those. That's that's going to hurt the team.
Absolutely. And their number 8 looks really good, by the way. I like the look of that 8.
Augustus, yeah. Big boy.
However, I will say this, that the move of Skumbutso Noche to the Sharks has invigorated that pack, because it's given them a skillful, fast linking player, which they didn't have before. Kind of like the Ryan Kankowski type player, although he seems to have a better offload in his arsenal than Kankowski did, but at least they've got that linking player the Sharks have. And I think Mbonambi is an underestimated player. right? I really
Yeah.
do. I think he is a tremendous rugby player.
Me too. Yeah, I mean, what he did actually taking Malcolm Mark's spot in the Springboks, I mean, and he did it by performances, which was,
Exactly.
no one could predicted that really a year out.
Exactly. If you think 2 years before, Marx was really pushing hard for World Rugby Player of the Year. And yeah, that was a tremendous performance. I'd like to, I know it's my team, but I'd just like to also point out the difference in changing coaches has made to the Sharks.
Yeah.
Oh, the attitude.
The depressed mafia is out of town.
What's that, mate?
The depressed mafia is out of town finally, and things start to click again.
Yeah. I remember, what did he call the bunch of palookas, or I don't know, he had something that he called the press. But if you think that, no, mate, that's just wrong.
What is? Sorry?
I didn't even get my coffee in time
All right,
before this thing
boys.
started. I was running around trying to get this thing set up, this different computer.
I think Herman's going to have
And
to
then
run.
you go and crack one of those. That's just not right.
I need to leave you now. I have an appointment at the hospital. It's not about the corona, don't worry. I might have one afterwards. It's always a bit nervous to go there these days. But I see you all soon enough. Have a good day.
Thank you, Herman.
Bye-bye. Yeah.
So yes, that's one thing. The attitude of that team, just just looking to have fun, is a massive thing. And a lot of players, when you talk to them, they do interviews, they talk about the need to enjoy your rugby at the end of the day. And
yes,
look,
yes.
They are professional people, but look, you're going to get a better performance if you're happier. End of story. So hence you need to make it fun.
You think about all of us, mate. It doesn't matter where we work. It doesn't matter if you're working on a farm, in an office, in a hospital, on a road crew, in a store. If the environment and the culture and the environment that you're working in is a joyous one, right, then everybody performs better. Right? And it just appears that Dupree is one of those guys that comes in and makes a good change to start with, but then he's just too severe ongoingly. Right? Because if you think that the fact that the Sharks have lost, just take the Dupree twins. Those are two world class players that are gone, and the team is exponentially better. Right?
Yep.
It really is. So, and whether or not you thought Robert Dupree should start, or it was nepotism, whatever the story was, to have Robert Dupree even as a backup 10. Dupree is a good 10.
Yeah.
He might not be as mercurial and as athletically gifted as Kevin Bosch is, but a better defender and a good solid 10. So you've lost two world-class players and a good backup 10, and the team is so much better. Right? And so you've got to give some credit here to the coach. Yes, you can say Oxen Chair has made a difference, and he certainly has. I'm very impressed with him. And yes, Skumbutso Noche has made a difference. And yes, I also think that the return of Craig Burden has restored some impact off the bench, because that's what he was famous for before he went north to play in the who did he play for, by the way? You're the man who knows Northern Hemisphere teams. Who did Craig Burden go to?
I can't remember now.
Anyway, but his great impact was to come on for John Smith, or to come on for Bismarck, and provide that impact with ball in hand at hooker in the last 30 minutes. So yes, there is, but when you consider the absolute amazing abilities of those two Dupree twins, you would think, oh, they would take a little step backwards, but they haven't. And that's a huge credit to that coach, who, by the way, once again, we see a teacher proving to be a really, really good rugby coach.
Yep. So
and it's amazing how many teachers have been such good rugby coaches.
So Stade Francais is where he's come from. Yeah, no, it's been a fantastic turnaround by the Sharks. One name that has popped up is that perhaps Jake White might come back to be the Bulls head coach, or director of rugby. Sorry. You're shaking your head at that one.
No, I'm shaking my head, not that he wouldn't do a good job. I'm just shaking my head at how the wheel has turned, because for your viewers that don't know, Jake White, his bridges with South African rugby teams were, when I say South African rugby teams, let me rephrase. His bridges with the Afrikaans parts of South African rugby were well and truly burned after 2007. He was so loathed, and I know we've said this before, but just a reminder, he was so loathed that during the 2007 World Cup, his job was advertised while they were still playing the tournament. Right? It's a decision that is so utterly bad that it beggars belief. They advertise his job while they are competing in the tournament. They go on and win it, and he was like, "I'm out of here." Right? And he tells a story in his book that at the beginning of 2007, when he returned from summer holidays after Christmas, remembering your Northern Hemisphere viewers that Christmas and summer is the same time in the Southern Hemisphere. So he comes back from summer and Christmas holidays in the year that he's going to try and win the World Cup with the Springboks. And he found his office had been packed up, South African Rugby headquarters in Cape Town. His office had been packed up and all his stuff put in boxes and taken down to his new office next to the air conditioning unit in the basement. Now, if you want a signal from your employer that we want you gone,
that's a pretty good.
That's a signal. Yeah, that's a pretty good signal.
So he
burnt. Carry on.
So the other names that have been mentioned along with his are Johan Ackerman at obviously head director of rugby at Gloucester, and Johan van Gran, who is coach at Munster. So those are the other two names that have been put in there. So if they land one of those three, that'll be a good result for the Bulls, won't it?
Yes, it will be. But I'm just when I shake my head, it's not because I don't think Jake White is a very skilled rugby man. I do. And it's not that he is English speaking, which he is, because he's also fully bilingual, right, in Afrikaans as well. But his bridges, he burnt them in his biography in black and white, which is a shocking read when you realize how bad South African rugby leadership is. And so to see him so far down the interview process to bring him in to the Blue Bulls shows you how desperate the Blue Bulls are. Right? There must have been a lot of people that moved out since the 70s. Sorry, man.
That was 2007, right? So we're talking in the last 12, 13 years that the administration in South Africa has changed a lot, and a lot of those guys who were around then probably are not there anymore.
Well, it sounds brutal to say this, but one can only hope. Because I mean, some of the decisions that were made. This is where South Africa, and I know we are delving here for topics because we don't have games, but this is where South Africa has done differently after their last World Cup win than either of the previous two, because there is continuity. So, Hitch Christie coached in 2005, has the only 100% winning record of a South African coach, of a Springbok coach. He stepped down because he had leukemia, and he sadly died probably within 2 years of the World Cup final in 2005. And so the person who took over was Andre Markcraft, who deliberately dismantled that team, including dropping Francois Pienaar. We never played again after that for the Springboks. So he deliberately dismantled the team, and the head of South African rugby told the players he was going to get them because they held him over a barrel with Max. What's his name? Who's the head of Fox? What's his name? Murdoch. Rupert Murdoch's offer. No, Kerry Packer's offer to start a new rugby league held it to ransom and the start of all professionalism, all of that turmoil, and he went out and he got it, right? The second time round was Jake White. no continuity because they booted him, or they made sure he knew he wasn't welcome, and they wouldn't give his job to his assistant. Now we've got continuity. So I think it's really good for world rugby that you've got Rassie Erasmus stepping back into his position of director of rugby, and his assistant stepping in and continuing whatever they've set in place so they can continue with the improvements. Right? So it makes the Springboks a lot stronger, but we want strong rugby. We don't want a team that should reach the sort of levels that they reached and then suddenly fall off a cliff. That's not good for rugby.
Yep.
And what Herman pointed out is the embracing of rugby by the non-white population, especially the black population in South Africa, which is spearheaded by Siya Kolisi. That's why we said when he was appointed and going into last year that the best chance for South Africa to win the World Cup, this is prior to them winning it, was if Warren Whiteley was captain, because he's the best captain. But it's for the future of rugby, not just in South Africa, but on the African continent, for the next 20 to 30 years, it was far more important for Kolisi to be captain. Not that he's a bad captain, he's clearly a good captain, that's not what I mean.
Yeah.
I just mean Warren Whiteley was the best captain, he got injured, he lost his place as Springbok captain 18 months before because of injury, and Kolisi stepped in, and we're reaping it.
That's where Warren's had it. Yeah, he's very good player, very good captain for the Lions as well, and has not. Injury unfortunately has derailed his career over the last 2-3 years. It's been really sad to see.
The last 4 years has absolutely devastated his career. Yeah, and the thing has been that it's not the same injury. It's a knee, it's a groin, it's a shoulder, it's a bicep.
Yep.
I mean, it's not one problem that he's been hit in one area and now it's weak. It's just his body almost like can't take the rigours.
So just to bring people up to speed on a couple of the rumours that are going around, apparently there is a suggestion being circulated around the Super Rugby franchises for an 8-week season, basically with the domestic season, with each conference just playing itself home and away. So that is being circulated apparently. So we'll see if anything comes of that. I think that actually it's got a low chance of success. I do know that and the reason I'm saying that is if we look at why the Plunket Shield, which is the domestic cricket competition here in New Zealand, has been cancelled, it wasn't cancelled because of gatherings. It was cancelled because airports, hotels, and I can't remember what the other mentioned, perhaps it was stadiums, but airports and hotels are high-risk locations to be putting people through. And that's why they didn't want their players travelling through airports and staying in hotels. So if that's the case for cricket, why should it be different for rugby? And I think that even a domestic competition at the moment is, even if it is behind closed doors, and which is something I have been advocating for, was advocating for, I think it's very tough to see that actually going ahead.
Yeah, no, and also to back up what you're saying there, we know that Rudy Gobert was the domino that led to the NBA. That when that fell, when he was diagnosed or when he tested positive for coronavirus, the NBA shut down the season. And then all the other dominoes, other things just fell after that. But what is not widely reported is that Rudy Gobert was in a hotel room prior to being tested, moved out, the next NBA team came in, and the video operator stayed in his hotel room for the next team. That video operator tested positive for coronavirus. So the thought may be, look, obviously there's multiple connections. He could have picked it up somewhere else.
Yep.
But the current thought is he picked it up from being in the same hotel room after Gobert moved out, right? So this is the realities of what you're saying is how do you control that? I mean, you just need one player to test positive, and then every trainer that's worked with him, every player that's practiced with him, because remember rugby is all about this and tackle contact with sweat. Every team that he's played against in the last 2 weeks, they all got to be checked and isolated and tested. So yeah, it's very, very difficult to see how that's feasible.
Yeah, and because of those things you just said, New Zealand Rugby have announced the cancellation of all club rugby and training through until the 14th of April. The only exception to this is non-contact, so i.e. Ripper, potentially touch as well. So maybe my social touch on a Wednesday will still be going ahead. I can't make it this week, but hey, the important things in life, it's about me and the impact on my life than anything else.
Well, I've got the go ahead from the orthopedic surgeon that my shoulder is up to play Prezzi's rugby this season. I was all ready to go for it. But I think even touch, if you think about touch, how much perspiration gets on the ball, and you're passing the ball to each other, and it's transferring all the time, and guys are holding it under their arms, and just
under their
sweat
arms?
coming off you.
What kind of touch do you play?
No, but
put it
you
under
hold
your
it
arms
here.
Touch. It's in your hands.
You should be holding it here. But you know that but you know what I'm saying. It's on you all the time. Even that, it's a tough one.
It is, and you've got to laugh, unfortunately, at some of the things that have been happening. So, the NRL last weekend decided that they would give all the ball boys gloves. Makes sense, and that whenever the ball went into the crowd, the ball boy would hand it to somebody who would sanitize the ball, and they would hand it back to the ball boy, who was wearing the same gloves that he touched the ball with before he handed it over. But hey, don't worry, the players are being protected. It's like, dear.
Paul, it's like that thing. They recommend that we greet bumping elbows, right?
Oh no! Oh, no, we've got the Prime Minister has said East Coast handshake. So just a chin. Other ones that I
it's Jacinda Ardern that said this.
Jacinda Ardern said that. Yep. Other ones that.
Well, that makes sense because a few days ago it was do this, but at the same time, if you've got a cough or sneeze into your elbow, and then it's like viruses don't go around corners.
I've got a couple of other good ones. So, Hungy, whatever. Sorry, I got pronunciation wrong. But the Maoris like to touch nose to nose. The
hongi.
So
the hongi.
The hongi. So a long distance hongi. If say you're on the farm and you see someone in the next field you want to say hi to, but don't get all the way over, is to go and do a kind of a remote nose, be like blowing a kiss kind of thing. So below the nose over.
Blow the nose over.
Sorry. Oh yeah, I'm not trying to be. The other one is so New Zealand Sign Language. One is options to go. So that's how are you?
Right.
So that's another one as well. So there's a number of options. We've also probably all of us have seen the little GIF of the foot tapping as well. So there's a number of options.
No, I haven't seen that.
Haven't you? Oh, it's where basically you go instep to instep with one foot, then instep to instep with the other foot. And that's there's
okay. Like a river dance.
Kind of, yeah, but yeah, and that's the Chinese one now. They're all doing the instep, tap tap.
But so there's a number of options. Rises again.
Because at the moment, I've still been going to. I organised a coffee meetup this morning. Had coffee with someone else this afternoon. So I'm still going about but I'm doing the New Zealand Sign Language one as a kind of way, as a kind of introduction rather than trying to shake hands. But it's so instinctive. It's so instinctive just to go to shake a hand. And both times I did at some point during the chat or when we said goodbye. But hey, it's one of those things we'll have to sort of learn and get used to. So that's the rumour at the moment, and that's the way that New Zealand rugby is going. Every competition has been called off. Let's be honest. And whilst certain people might be saying X, Y, and Z of how as to how long it might be, let's be blunt here. As the New Zealand Rugby Players Association guy said, predicting anything beyond 16 days is pointless. We don't know what's going to happen. And I think at the moment, even 16 days, if you know what's going to happen in 2 weeks' time, wow, get down to the bookie and lay some bets because you're doing very well. most of us haven't got it yet. Have been caught out by surprise by a number of announcements over the last 3 to 4 days, and I think that's only going to continue as to how much this all knocks down. Today we went from still having the Waikato Rugby Union, Waikato Rugby Club competition kicking off all together with all the first round at Morrinsville, to everyone playing at home, to the competition being cancelled over the space of 8 hours. So, yeah, these things change rapidly, and I think that's going to continue to do so.
Yeah, and this is a good time to be a farmer.
True.
You're the one person in the world at the moment who everybody wants you to keep your job, right? Not that anybody wishes ill on others, and everybody hopefully should wish well to others that they keep their jobs, but we all want the farmers to stay and work, right? And there's going to be demand no matter what for their product. Yeah, I think this is the time where, if the one thing that I could recommend to viewers is to reassess your luxury spend. Let's put it that way. It's time to have a look at what are your essentials: food, light bulbs, toilet rolls. Please don't go and assault somebody for another pack of toilet rolls. That's just absolutely ridiculous. But what I'm trying to say is, just focus on that. The only thing that I would say is an important luxury spend is your streaming, because we're going to be spending a lot of time catching up on movies and binge watching, and maybe we'll end up doing a little sideline of what we recommend for binge watching.
No. I've got a few content ideas, so don't worry. But I'll just point out here that I'm fine for toilet roll. So yeah,
put it more in the middle.
It is. It's smack bang. It's in the middle for people who are watching the show. Sorry,
okay, all right.
You're on that camera. You're on a different camera.
Oh, look at you!
So yeah, so I'm good for toilet roll. Look,
our mutual friend Simon Moitara,
yep,
who has done a couple of broadcasts with you and is captain of the Presley's team at Marist here in Marist Old Boys here in Hamilton. He put a toilet roll on bid or buy, or on Trade Me, which is a bidding thing, and his starting bid was $200.
And did anybody actually take it?
He put it up for a few hours and then he took it down. He's such a decent fella. He thought it was in poor taste, probably. So
he probably not. But
so, yeah, I thought it was a great joke.
Yeah, and then also I have been caught panic buying. I would like apologies, but I was down to my last can of tonic, so I am very sorry about that, folks. But I did go. I did do a little bit of panic buying there. So
it's close. It's close. Good save.
But I think with I think that was fair there. Look, all joking aside, look, there's don't panic buy, please. There are going to be a lot of make sure you have got enough money for yourself, but also there are a lot of small businesses and a lot of people who independent people who are going to be struggling a lot over the next couple of months. So if you can buy local, if you can support people who are doing, if only if you have the spare cash, let's be blunt here, but if you can, support people, and other things like listening to people's podcasts who have got adverts on, the things like that will help them get some sort of income. Etc.
Very good point.
So there are things like that you can do that might not cost you anything. One of the interviews I'm getting set up is with Nick Heath, who people might know, who is a radio commentator for TV. Sorry, no, is a rugby commentator for TV in the UK. And I'm going to have him on, and we're going to have a chat about what this impact means to the kind of rugby industry, from as his personal experience as a contractor in the industry, and how he's suddenly gone from having income to having no income pretty much overnight. So I'm going to be discussing that with him. So that show will be coming out hopefully over the next week. Hopefully I can get organise that one. For example, his podcast is called Q Commentator. So go have a listen to those, because they are good, they are interesting, and I say the ad revenue will help them out as well. So that's coming up. Also, had a chat with somebody today, and he was saying, look, I'd love to reminisce about the time that Auckland got back the Ranfurly Shield. So what I will be putting a challenge out to my regular contributors like John, like Herman, like Stephen Harris, Arshan, etc. is, guys, do you have a game that you would like to, from the past, that you would like to go over and have a chat about? I will hunt down that game. I will watch it ahead of time, make some notes, and we'll put out some shows over the next few weeks where we're discussing classic games that were fun for us over the last from history. So a few retro shows. So look out for those as well. Did I watch any Rapid Rugby this weekend? I did watch a little bit of it, but it was in between trying to watch all the Super Rugby, and I must admit it was all a bit crazy this weekend, because not only was I watching rugby, but there were too many announcements going on about what was being cancelled, what wasn't being cancelled, and it just got all a bit nuts, to be honest. So hopefully you enjoyed Rapid Rugby. I do think, and actually, yeah, hell, let's run over. I think this was a massive missed opportunity for Rapid Rugby. Here we have a tournament, and perhaps I'm not being empathetic enough towards players, to be fair, but here we have a tournament that's in its first season. It only has 6 teams. It's a small tournament. Potentially, they could have rushed all the 6 teams to one location, hired 6 hotels for the next 2 months. Let's be honest, those hotels aren't going to be full anyway, and then have played all the games behind closed doors. So it's not like they would be flying through and traveling a lot. They'd be in the same hotel room for the next 8 weeks. So it's not like there's the issue of moving into a new room and catching something. You're not traveling through hotels, and I really think they could have. Now, admittedly, those players
and played in one stadium, in one set of practice facilities, played the games, played 3 games one after another, producing what is now priceless content for the sports channels who have nothing live to show anymore. They could have produced content. They could have controlled contact. It's a very good point you made.
I did email Global Rapid Rugby and said, hey, look, this is what you need to do, and here's how you need to get the message out there. Christopher, you're right. So, whilst you're saying that South China Tigers and China Lions beating Fiji and Samoa was surprising, I predicted all 3 results this weekend in Global Rapid Rugby. So, hey, yay me. I was 3 from 3.
Did you make any money?
No, not on that one. I did make money on my Super Rugby predictions, though. And if you want to see how that went, go to DrivingMaul.com and check out DrivingMaul versus the bookie. Because, yes, I had another winning round, and I am winning overall this season against the bookie in Super Rugby, Six Nations, and Pro 14. So across all of them. So if you want to go check out how that's going, I say DrivingMaul.com is where you can get all that information. So yes, I do think that they missed out on an opportunity there. They could have all flown to Fiji, for example, maybe, rather than necessarily having it in Perth. So
to the team, 6 weeks in Fiji is not the worst thing to do with your life.
I was thinking, yeah, imagine that, a working holiday to Fiji for the next 8 weeks, for 2 months. Oh, dearie me, that would have been a hard life. Now, to be fair to me, look, perhaps I'm not being empathetic towards those players' families who they'll be separated from for 2 months, etc. And some players you give dispensation. Say, look, if you don't want to do it, don't do it. And I'm sure there'll be an extra Fijian lad or two who'd be happy to fill in those spaces in the squads. But yes, I do think there was the Global Rapid Rugby had a real opportunity there. Now, that window was only open for about 12 to 24 hours to make that decision, and they missed it.
Here's a thought, though, Paul.
Yep.
And I see we're about to run over, but just something to think about is the world is going to change completely after this. There's going to be massive changes. Right from simple, small things that are really just sports related, and on the whole, when it comes to life and death, are not that big, right through to the way people think and the way people appreciate, because so many things that we are so used to living with, like live sport, being able to head down to the pub, being able to go to a place and congregate, all these kind of things, which we who live in a free country are so used to having. I think there'll be, at least for a generation, a sense of gratitude returning to the world, and rather than this kind of like, what's the word, not complacency, but when you take things for granted. Right? But one of the things that could change is sporting schedules. So what brought this to mind is I was hearing a discussion about the NBA, and they say that if the NBA can start again in 3 or 4 months, they will. They'll play the playoffs. They'll leave the end of the season probably, go straight into the playoffs. And instead of finishing in June, that means that they'll finish July, August, September, October, right? Which is normally round about when they start, October or November. Which means that they'll then start the new season probably somewhere around Christmas Day or the beginning of January. And actually, there has been arguments for some time that would be the right place to start the season, to play, instead of playing October to June, to play from Christmas Day through to August. And in that way, they're not up against college football, and they're not up against the NFL. In the thick of the NFL season, when there's so many games in the weekend, the NBA would have a lot of that to themselves. Yeah, so that would be a much better fit for the NBA and much more lucrative. And what we may see with rugby is we may see shifts in seasons. It may happen because suddenly it's out of their hands. It's not as if suddenly you have to get everybody on board to agree to run longer or take a gap or have a break in cash flow. The break in cash flow is not going to have to be agreed on, it's happening. And what you might find is that when rugby starts up again, it might be in a different place, and once it starts going, people might go, hang on a second, yeah? Maybe this is the time to play. Whether that's Southern Hemisphere, Northern Hemisphere, I don't know. But certain opportunities like that will open.
This is John advocating for summer rugby in the Northern Hemisphere.
Well, what I do advocate is that that's the most logical. If that doesn't come to fruition, then shift the Southern Hemisphere to a summer game. Right?
Yep.
But one way or another, get alignment. Get alignment. Because playing it at odds with each other doesn't make sense.
Yeah, Christopher in the live chat says the same thing. Yeah, this is a great opportunity to potentially have a global season, but he doesn't see it happening. We'll see, maybe, but it is, as you say. I think it's a possibility, but it's a long shot.
Yeah, but what you pointed out something so good, Paul, when you said there was an opportunity that opened there for global rapid rugby to make a decision and think outside the box. And they didn't take it. There's 12 or 24 hours. Maybe they weren't agile enough. Maybe they weren't bright enough. Maybe they didn't read your email. Maybe they just didn't have the courage to grasp the nettle. But the point being here is this is a possibly once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to change things that we've always done. We spoke right at the beginning about the ludicrous travel schedules for Super Rugby and how that has, without doubt, affected results and had a direct impact on the competitive balance of playoff matches.
And it's, to be honest with you, it's going to get worse next year with the round-robin format as well.
So, when you look at it from that perspective, this is an opportunity for us to throw stuff in the air and say, right, there's always this argument that broadcast contracts are in place and we can't change anything, and blah, 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 blah. Well, it's all gone now. All these broadcasters will be desperate for content, right? Because they're just bleeding subscribers.
Now,
and so
two things that are happening. Two things happen. One is I've done a video that is out of the box thinking as to how Scottish rugby could raise more revenue. So go over to DrivingMaul.com if you want to check that one out. Secondly, Major League Rugby has thought outside the box, and they are going to run an esports competition where each team will put up a player who will be playing an online rugby game, and they'll be playing online rugby against each other in Major League Rugby, which is they're going to stream it on YouTube.
I mean, it's brilliant. Because you and I both know our kids watch YouTube videos of other people playing games, which doesn't make sense to us, but that's what they do. So that's brilliant. I mean, you can foster interest in the game by doing that. That's brilliant. So there's opportunities like that, opportunities like the one that you mentioned, where we can shift things, we can change things, and will we be able to have the courage to make some of these changes and to say everything is up for discussion? We've got months here ahead of us that we can take and pick apart schedules, programs, travel, bookings, blah, blah, blah. We can, all of it, competition structures, all of it is up for discussion.
So,
right?
I'm just thinking on the fly, but I do have a Cornflake who has been on the has not been on the channel as much this year as previous years, because he was planning a once in a lifetime holiday to America that got cancelled 48 hours before he flew, which is very sad.
Wow.
But that does mean he's now in New Zealand for the foreseeable future. He runs a channel that is about rugby computer gaming called Cornflake, so go check that out. But he will be the perfect person to review the gameplay and of these Major League teams. So yeah, just thinking on the fly, I need to talk to him about that and discuss how we get how we review those Major League Rugby games, because yes, you might be getting post-match reaction straight from the Major League Rugby computer games coming soon to a screen near you. Hey,
nice.
Think outside the box. Don't give up on any idea. If you have any content ideas, if there's anything you'd love to hear about, do let me know. As I say, we'll be looking at those retro games. That is a plan I have. Although I was planning on doing a whole bunch of coverage of club rugby, but it got cancelled. So I was going to cover Waikato. I had another person who was going to cover North Harbour, Stephen Harris, who a lot of you will know was going to cover. I was going to get him to cover the Auckland competition. And I know people in other regions as well that would have covered it, and we would have had a coverage of club rugby in New Zealand. Unfortunately, as I say, that's all been cancelled. So that plan has gone out the window in the last 4 or 5 hours, and that's how quick things are moving at the moment. Let's be honest. I was supposed to be writing 6 prediction articles this week. I'm expecting the traffic on my website to basically probably knock 2 zeros off the end of it. It's going to drop that much this week because of the lack of predictions. This is hard times for content creators. We've got nothing to create content around to a certain degree. So we're scrabbling for things. If there's stuff that if there's anything you would like to hear about from a rugby point of view, let me know, and I'll see what I can do and what we can put together. So it's all fun and games up there. I'm lucky in that I'm pretty sure my supporters will all stick around, but there's a lot of other people who are relying on ticket sales, etc., that aren't in such a lucky situation. So think about them as well. Thank you, John, for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure yet again.
It's been a pleasure.
And obviously, thank you to Herman, who had to drop off. And thank you everyone who's been in the live chat. Don't forget, check out DrivingMaul.com. Hit subscribe down below. Put that bell on so you don't miss any notifications. Because you know what? Whilst this show will definitely be going on at 8 p.m. every Tuesday night, as I say, there may be other things cropping up as and when we come across them. And one of the things that I will be doing a video about will be what options does Super Rugby have to finish its season. We've discussed a couple of them on tonight. There are other ones too. And hopefully you will enjoy that video as well, folks. Stay safe.
And if I can just say one last thing, remember what Paul said: support your local businesses.
Thank you. Yep.
Support your local businesses. If you can buy locally at the local grocer, if you can buy bread and milk at the local guy, go for it. Support your local businesses. Support the businesses around you. We need to support each other in the next few months more than ever.